Yes, there we go.
Thank
Yes,
you.
very, very overtly. Since 2010, I've run workshops and retreats. I call them the Heart of Thriving, but it's very much
Yes.
the three principles. And we talk about mind, consciousness, and thought, although not so much conceptually, because it's so funny. I think sometimes the worst way of learning about the three principles is talking about the three principles.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in some of my slides, I talk about them, and we explore, and I guess looking over the 3 day, I mean, each one is different, but looking over the outline design of the 3 days, we're pretty much kind of hitting, I would say pretty much equally the three different principles on different days, kind of probably working up to mind. So yes, I do all the time. It's what I do all the time.
I know you're doing it. I know you're showing it, and I know you're coming from that base. I just wondered how
Yes.
completely you are with the 3 bits, and yeah, how that manifests itself. But yeah.
Yes. And there's also a way, of course, in which, and Sid said this, like they're all the same thing, really. There's really only one principle. So, and I found that, like both for myself and for my clients and participants, it's very easy to kind of just get up into your head, and it becomes a kind of an intellectual, blur.
Yeah.
And so I try and kind of facilitate a process to bring people back into a kind of lived experience of it wherever I can. And as I say, I'm very overt about it. If you look at my website, it's kind of, it's all there. And I make it very clear also when I, take people on to coach them, that's the kind of paradigm that I'm working from. So in a sense, people can kind of self-select. Yeah.
When you say it's really just one, what did you say? Just one principle, or yeah, because that's my experience of it. And kind of in that case, why do you bother with the 3? Why it's like,
that's a great question. Yeah.
Why do you not just share from the one, and what if that's
well, I mean, I guess I kind of do. I mean, if you look at the 3 day thing, it's not a question of, okay, it's day 2, now we're going to do consciousness, or now we're going to do thought. It's all very much, but I did a kind of just for myself and my own curiosity, I kind of looked at the various sessions and the exercises and the activities, and you could, if you wanted to, like hook them onto one of the 3. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter that much as far as I'm concerned. It's do people go away with insights? That's my only insights that transform. That's my only criterion, really. And I don't care whether or not they could stand up and give a TED talk on the 3 principles, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why
do you ask?
I think I'm asking just to help me clarify, help me understand, and also help me. I'm at that place of, I suppose I'm exploring what I'm sharing, as well as I'm exploring for myself. And the more I explore with other people, whether it's on a Facebook group or in conversation, their understanding, and it helps me to kind of go, okay, that makes sense. That's still a sticking post for me. What's going on here? Not necessarily in any great analytical, but just to kind of note, just noticing, because it helps me, I suppose, thinking about it unconsciously. It probably helps me guide as to what direction I'm going in, because I'm looking for more insights. So I'm like, well, what's needing to open up here for me?
Right. Yeah.
And also, it's my whole thing around sharing with other people, so I don't. And I know this is the perennial thing when people share. I don't see myself just as a 3Ps person. But is that just because I haven't completely fully embraced it yet? Who knows? You know, being open to what might be. And I think I'm still sometimes hitting a wall about what I'm sharing with others.
Yeah. Well, I mean, would it be helpful to talk about where you're kind of, I don't know what to call them, the places and the, like where you think the three principles currently is kind of like, no, that's not the whole story. Or you know, like where you sort of butt up against fully embracing that as your, you know, because I would say, I mean, I love to learn about other things as well. Still, you know, I haven't stopped doing that. I learn from a lot of different, you know, I suppose spiritual teachers, disciplines, approaches. So I'm not 3P. What's the word? I kind of yeah. I was thinking about, like, when you're in a relationship, whether you kind of sleep with other people or not, that kind of thing. Like, you know, I sleep with other people in terms of, you know, metaphorically.
Yes.
But I've also seen that, because I think they are such universal truths in a way, and many of the other traditions point to the same thing, as far as you know, they're just using different kinds of language. That it's, you know, it's not like there's a sense in which we cannot not be 3P people, because that's how the human experience works. Like, so whether or not you understand it, whether or not you talk about it, whether or not you've ever come across it, your experience of life is being created moment to moment through those things, or that one thing, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, but that isn't a 3Ps. That's most spiritual teachings will tell you that.
Yeah.
Most non-duals.
Yeah.
Teachings will tell you that.
Absolutely. So so tell me, and be as kind of, you know, what's the word? You don't have to mince your words. What is it that you shy away from in the kind
I don't know what my words are. So yeah. I think it is that. It's the fact that there's these three things, and it isn't really like that. It all comes from one thing, and it's just that I'm now understanding that so many people and traditions and people say that, but for some reason they then get up their own arse and put a whole lot of techniques or a whole lot of extra puffing out. You know, it's like reading a book that, you know, self-help book, which is like got some real gems in 30 pages, and then for some reason it's 300 pages.
Yeah.
And it really fucks me off. Yeah, talk about no, it makes it my word. And that's more related to things like the books, or going onto someone's training or someone's live, and I'm exhausted because I've so quickly overwhelmed. I end up needing to read or listen to a whole lot, but it seems to me they're only a little gem. Now, I know part of that is you need to be open and repetition and all sorts of other things, and people reach it at different points. So but
if it's about anything, it's about pointing you to your own wisdom. So, like, you know, that for me, you know, if there's a hierarchy, you know, your own inner nudges, guidance, intuition, all the stuff that I know you've experienced, like that trumps everything else as far as I'm concerned.
It does. But I guess that's that isn't quite where I suppose, but yeah, because it's not, that isn't always steeped in the everyday. It's been either experiences when I've been traveling and find difficult to bring back here, or it's like my mystical or out of body experiences have been so kind of way out, I've not then been able to do anything with it, if you like. It's so much in the expanse of the oneness. And then, and I think it's I'm well aware it's my own frustration with myself and my own anger and annoyance and that I project out. And that, yes, in that respect, I completely get that it's all about us creating our own experience. I do get that. And I think also, yeah, maybe it's my own, it's probably my own frustration with just not getting it, not it sort of there. Like this morning, something happened. I had received a message on something, and it solved a problem for me. And the relief is like, and afterwards I was thinking, but I know I was creating it. Mm. I know it's just or whatever like that. And it's as if that wasn't enough. I actually do need the problem solved. So that's not quite, that is coming back to the everyday, that I'm just not getting it. Well, it doesn't fit. Yeah, I think and then I don't even know what the third principle is. I always get confused. That seems very, is it consciousness? Yeah. So there's something that just feels very splitting, having three principles, very intellectual, very like, it's even though it's clear it's not something you have to grasp, it just is. And when I have those moments of just isness, but then when I have those moments of just isness, there's no three of anything.
No.
I am it. So it just doesn't make, at that level, it doesn't make sense.
So I agree.
Those are the walls I keep hitting.
Right. So how isn't that enough then? Like, why don't you just, for me, it's one. I understand the isness, I understand the oneness. Why do you think you're not getting something? There's something you're not getting.
I guess it is. I mean, I think it's been very helpful when you talked about the personal will, and I don't know if these were your words, personal will and universal will. That's why I've kind of said each time, let's talk about that. That's been immensely because I'm getting that what the why is my old habit of personal will coming in, trying to do, because my experience, as you say, go back to your own experience, my experience is actually not able to contain it, so I haven't been able to do the doing.
What if that's like how, this is clumsy, how it's meant to be? Like,
I can't function in that place though.
Well, only because you think it shouldn't be like that. I mean, I can function in that place. I know there is, in terms of, I know that here as a human in form, there will always be incredible, limits in a way to what I understand, what I'm capable of controlling, what I'm even kind of inspired to talk about, to share, to the thoughts that come into my head. I know that I'm not doing that consciously either. So there is a kind of for me, it's probably been one of the biggest things for me over the last 12, whatever it is, just over a decade or so, is this kind of surrendering into, in this form, like we're never going, certainly this is never going to get it. Never going to get it. And there's almost like a way in which that's, that's not a, that was a problem for me and it isn't anymore. It's like, oh yeah, that's being a human. And maybe, I don't know, maybe after we all shuffle off of this mortal coil, then the whole thing is going to be revealed, and you know, that'll be great. But while we're here, there seems to me like a necessity that we're individuated, even though we know we're not, that we're limited, even though we know we're not, you know. So I'm curious to ask you, what's your sort of fantasy about what will be different when you are able to bring everything that you have experienced and know at the deepest level into your day-to-day life? Because I think maybe you're kind of, I think that may be a story that is like not available, not totally available. But yeah, talk to me about that.
I think it's that I would be aware of those things you've just been talked about, my humanness, my limits. I'm not. In my mystical experience, my oneness experience, I wasn't aware of that.
Yes. Well, yeah, me too.
And I'm not. I think day to day, I'm often not aware of it in my head.
Me
and
too.
I think I would be, because that would be helpful, because I would be grounded. I would be in my body. I'd be in form, aware and completely connected with everything. But I would have a sense of being down here and not up there. And I would have a sense of this is where I'm meant to be, and the flow that I feel often would feel less like a sort of nice flow, and would be more just a sort of flowing river rather than a flow. That's very pedantic, but that they feel, yeah, there's a difference for me. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Like the continuous, it would just be experiencing aliveness and flowing without being kind of spacey flow.
Yeah.
Space cadet.
Yeah.
Flow.
It's so fascinating because I would say, I don't know, probably 80% of my clients, like they're the other way around. Like, so they're incredibly like in the human experience and are sort of desperately trying to taste the other thing and can't, or, you know, haven't yet, or, you know, and it's sort of like not quite the other way around, but like you know a lot about that, but finding it challenging to kind of see the value of that in the day-to-day human experience. Would that be right?
Yeah, because day to day I then go into this little really small place. Not so much now. I can feel an element of both coming in, but it's been very much an either or. So I've been so in my head and in this kind of probably fear of my experiences, fear of what I've been through, as well as all the old psychological baggage still. And as that's clearing, there is a possibility that either or is now merging, and that's what I see. It will feel very seamless soon. It's kind of like, and that's very lovely. And I do get a lot of that increasingly every day. That there's just like, and part of that is I've just not quite surrendered, but there is definitely. I realised last week. I thought, God, I'm actually unconscious. There is an element of surrendering here.
Yes.
I'm doing so little at the moment. Keep putting things off, procrastinating as much as ever. But in that, there's also just the spaciousness to be able to see the doing what feels right. So one of the things actually with the 3 principles, and I think confuses my head about trying to make one model or principle or something. I've been doing some deep breathing, like almost like, and it's the first time I found something I can do every day that helps me. And it's been amazing. I'm doing it this morning.
Excellent.
And a whole lot of old memories come up. So it is definitely a healing, cleansing, whatever, because it's helping me back into the body, because I'm kind of getting rid of not getting rid of, whatever the words are, but the tense parts, and helping me then to make sense of what comes up, and it feels very helpful and freeing. And I realise it's something I've got that I can do on my own now, which I've never had.
Really?
I've tried to meditate, or I tried to do this, and I've always desperately needed some help outside or something. But I think I'm making myself very wrong and confused, because if it's the 3 principles, I shouldn't need to do that. I just need to see it's my own experience, and I can see my thinking, and I shouldn't then need to spend an hour this morning just breathing into my body.
Well, that might be wisdom too. It's that thing that it's like, if something occurs to you to do and you feel it makes a difference, there's nothing wrong with that. I got I went through a few years of being very sort of 3P pure, and no, I was never allowed to do any techniques or even exercises with people or anything like that. And I've kind of come right round now to, who cares? Like, it's if it helps people, I'll give you an extreme example. Somebody, or before lockdown, somebody came to see me here face to face, and they were in the midst of as soon as they turned up, like the midst of a full-on panic attack. And it was very obvious that was what was happening. Now, I'm not in that situation. I'm not going to sit down and have a conversation about the principles. So I actually, we did some tapping, which is a technique that I know works really well with reducing anxiety and panic attacks. Because I didn't think she would actually be able to hear anything until she was, now the kind of corollary to that is, I remember saying to Michael Neal years ago, when I was nowhere near, understanding the little bit that I understand now, I said, yeah, but if a client comes to me with a broken leg and I know how to fix their leg, I'm going to break their leg. I'm going to fix their leg.
Oh my goodness, I better watch out.
Yeah, no, I'm going to fix their leg before we sit down and have like a philosophical conversation. And what he said to me has always stuck with me, which he said, yeah, but the trouble is 90% of people who've, come to you with a broken leg haven't got a broken leg. They just think they have. So I think both of those are true.
And I think that at some level I get that second, what Michael said, and that's why it's confusing me as to, in a way, why I'm not getting it or something. But then, and it's the fact it's these 3 principles. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I struggle with the 3rd one. So I sort of get that I get that everything's inside out in terms of thinking, and I get that I would call it a divine, I don't know what I would call it. Today I'm calling it a divine spirit.
Yeah.
Coming through me. And so it's difficult following something when you're not sure what it means, what it is.
Yeah. No, and I think that would, stick with that. stick with that. I agree with you. I think we overcomplicate it, you know, a lot of the time. And I think I'm right in saying it wasn't Sid at all. It was George Pransky who, you know, one of Sid's early students, and who then decided he wanted to run a course on it and felt he had to kind of give it a bit more structure and a bit more, you know, taxonomy. So, but you know, it's not as if you have to. You don't have to sort of prove to the 3P community that they're doing that. Can you not just be comfortable with your understanding of it, which your understanding of the whole thing, I don't just mean the 3 principles, in the knowledge that that's just only going to get deeper and deeper. Excuse me, I just want to. Sorry about that. Apology.
I don't think I can, because it makes it hard. I completely get that there's something for me to stay in the conversation, to follow, and I find it, I'm loving these conversations, thank you. It's like a really wonderful space to explore in a sort of unfolding way, without it having to be sort of great coaching to get somewhere, or teaching me to understand it or so on. So that feels a relief. I think that really helps. And similarly, the variety of what's out there is great, but it just feels, a bit of me goes, well, I just take what works and I take the best of it, and I'm good at combining, I'm good at synthesizing, I'm good at summarizing, I'm good at absorbing. And the wall always comes when I then go, and of course it's judgment, yeah, but they're saying this and this is just so, you know, and yet, but I can't believe they're inflated. Yeah, but, you know, the yeah, but comes at, but they're charging a fortune. Yeah, but there's such a waste of who they could be, you know, this could be available to thousands and many more people, and you're putting all this frigging rubbish and crap on it. And then I think, well, that must mean I'm not getting something, because I kind of get it. And then, okay, so what's my version? I know this is really just about me finding my version, and you know, so that's what kind of goes around. It's really hard to stay in the conversation if I don't understand something. I'm just someone who it's really, yeah, it kind of really makes a difference. And partly that is because I only ever work with people, and I think therefore the understanding needs to really land for me to share. But I don't know. But yeah, so turning it then to myself. So okay, so I just simply accept people for who they are, enjoy what I can enjoy, what I'm learning, allow be more open to what can land. And that's the gift. You know, enjoy the fact that the world is opening up in a way it hasn't done before. You know, that's beautiful. I suppose I'm picking up also now the divisiveness within the community. So that's just like, okay. And that's also been helpful at one level, because it's helped me to understand where I've been. It's helped me to go, oh, that's probably why I've hit a wall there, because of that bit of it. And so that's been really fruitful. It just helps my understanding. And in terms of my own voice, I think I come back to heart and wisdom. So I knew about a training I did before used to talk about wisdom. So the guidance of wisdom makes sense to me. I've very much experienced it. And that video you showed me, that inspired action, I love that term now. That's with me, inspired action. That's very meaningful. And I guess it's that I guess I suppose because I feel clunky within myself, I'm feeling clunky with what with my kind of exposure to the outside world and what I'm sharing. Because it's like, well, sometimes it's sort of, oh, I don't know. I'm going round now.
I mean, the thing that came up for me as you were talking was this like whole thing about transience, which I think gets neglected. And I think it's really central. People talk about, you know, I'm like this, or I'm like that, or I don't get it, or I do get it, or I'm feeling depressed, or I'm feeling joyful, or whatever it is. In fact, pretty much everything that we kind of feel and then express or don't express, it's all just of that moment, and can be, unless we kind of hook onto it and then obsess on that, it can be different in 20 minutes. Do you know what I'm saying?
Completely, and I definitely hook onto it and obsess. You know, that's the bit when you say, oh, well, I understand the other way and I'm coming to it from another way than a lot of your clients. But actually, my day-to-day is very obsessing, hooking on and round and round thoughts.
Right.
Even though my felt experience is aware, and they're as I say, they're coming together, they're kind of merging together.
Yeah, brilliant. So, you know, I don't want to turn it into a graph, but like if you plotted time on one axis and you bringing those two things together on the other, it sounds to me like it's doing that.
It's accelerating hugely, and it's partly, in a way, what gets in the way is my impatience. It's like, you know, part of me goes, I know it, so stop fucking around, Caroline.
Yeah.
But then I think the fear gets in, because the bit that goes, what does it go? I don't, yeah, maybe it is, I don't know how to share it with the world. I don't know. I think I get, maybe because I'm still part of me going into fix-it mode with other people and myself. I'm still trying to find a solution. Still getting a bit into black and white thinking, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the old revolving sushi bar, isn't it? You know what I mean? No? You've seen a...
What I know, I'm guessing, but what are you saying? That I'm picking and choosing, or what are you saying?
No, I'm saying... It's, again, just a metaphor like so many of the others, but, you know, if you imagine a revolving sushi bar, and we all have, like, stale old bits of sushi that have been on there longer than, you know, they're a bit past their best. And there's also some fresh new stuff always coming around that's kind of filling in the gaps. And there's something about, and again, I think this is the intellect, the ego, the wanting to control, wanting to fix. There's a real tendency for people to pick up the old manky sushi, you know, not really very nutritious, and kind of eat it again. And it's almost like, metaphorically, we stick our foot out on the mechanism of the revolving sushi bar, so it's just stuck there. And there's something for me about, like, where you're putting your attention, like, rather than down on the manky, it's up, and looking for what the great sushi chef in the sky has got coming round that's fresh and new and wasn't there the last time it went round. And there's something for me that really works about that I notice more of the fresh and the new and the unfamiliar when I just stop trying to fix what's happening right now, or what I'm thinking right now, or what I'm feeling right now. I just am less engaged with that, less interested in that, less I'm sort of much more, there'll be another one along in a minute, you know. And there always is another one along in a minute, as long as, but I can, you know, like anybody, I can get very, very obsessed with the thing in front of me, but I just do that less and less. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, I like that about eating the old stuff, and because I was thinking that again that this morning. That's what I keep focusing on, what isn't, or what goes wrong, or my lack.
Yes.
I had my the women's circle I run last night,
Oh, yeah.
and there were just 2 others. It was really tiny, and I made the subject courage, the courage within, I called it. And I always do the little process as well. And in the moment, what came up for me, and I thought, goodness, it was moving some things, moving towns. And lots of times people talk about my courage and I never see it. You know how that happens a lot when you, especially with courage, when you say that to someone, they often say, well, I just did it.
Yes.
Courage, unless it was a very obvious thing that they did out of their comfort zone. Now, why am I saying that? And I was thinking how nice last night I'm starting to see some of the things I've done, not just as the negative, because in the past I've talked about my running away or why I've done certain things. And I realised a part of me, though, has been shocked all my life, certainly. Shocked when I was a child, I was always shocked at people's behaviour, adults' behaviour. They just seemed so, I would now say, unethical and out of integrity. They'd say one thing and do another, and it just confused me. I'm permanently confused. And then more like the 20 years, I think, because some of my experiences have been so like that the whole time. And I think as some of them are landing, I'm also being able to see the benefits, but it's been so confusing because I don't feel that's the personal bit. I don't feel it's me doing it. But and that's where I lose myself. It's like I took inspired action, but I didn't have any sense of me doing it. But in that, I lose myself completely. There's no. Everything feels like air.
How can you lose yourself? I mean, go back to, it all depends what you think of as yourself, how you would define that. But that presence, that consciousness, like you can't ever lose that.
Logically, I can't.
No.
But it feels like it kind of dissipates into thin air, and everything around me, it becomes this intangible air. See, it's nuts.
That sounds quite exciting to me.
I think it has done. That's why I followed it, you know, in that respect.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't gone back to conventional life. That must be, you know, what's completely led me to this alternative and search and.
Yeah. But I want to ask you this, and you may want to punch me at this point, but you can't. It's on Zoom. It's that old coach question, but I really think this is germane. Like, what if everything was actually okay, Caroline? What if your only problem was that you have a wonderful mind and you overthink? But what if actually it's all okay? It's all unfolding as it should.
I kind of get that. it doesn't feel, so when you say it's unfolding as it should, I kind of go, yes. When you said, what if it's all okay, I go, but it isn't. And that for me is more about the world and what people are suffering. And it isn't okay because I don't know how to help people at a deep enough level. So I don't know if I've, I can get, well, I was going to say I can tell where it stems from, but actually it feels much younger. I can't remember if I'd said, but I've got a lot of suicide bereavement around. So for me, and my dad took his life. So for me, there's the whole, it isn't okay. When people say that, you're right, I do want to thump you now in this moment.
Yeah.
I didn't a moment ago, I was like, no, I don't want to thump her. But actually now I bring up my dad and other people I've known, a good friend of mine, a couple of friends.
Yeah, but I don't think okay in terms of.
But that's why I hate that phrase. It's so. Yeah. It's absolutely awful. It wasn't okay for them. It wasn't okay for me in a conversation with my dad. It isn't okay. It hasn't been okay. And I guess I don't trust myself to be okay with other people because I know that's why I closed down, heart-wise, for all sorts of reasons, but that's possibly one of the main ones. And it isn't okay for me as a helper because I'll never quite be good enough if I can't make sure everyone else is okay. At some level. I know that's not my responsibility.
Do you?
No, I don't. Yeah. I still think it is at some level. I think when you've been close to people who've taken their life, and I've known a lot of people who've been through the grief of that, there's so much not okayness around.
Well, we could have a whole conversation about, what okay means. And for me, it doesn't mean, yes, you will be happy, healthy and rich and you will live forever. Doesn't mean that. And you will experience no suffering. Doesn't mean that either. But I guess my question was aimed more at whether you're open to the possibility that you can still feel profoundly okay, regardless of all of those experiences. Because for me, part of are you familiar with Byron Katie and her work?
Basically, I know the 4 questions, but yeah.
No,
I can't remember what they are, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of, for me, it's a big part of, what do we call it, clarity, or is like accepting, and Buddhists would say the same, wouldn't they? Accepting reality as it is, and still living with joy, peace and love, and working where you're called to work to alleviate suffering or whatever. But like, that doesn't mean you're no better as a helper if you're suffering at the same time.
Yeah, I know the oxygen mask, and I say to people all the time about their okayness. So whether I'm just repeating it or I believe it at heart, I don't know. But I think you just said something. When we were talking earlier about the personal and universal, I think, I just had it. Yeah, the acceptance. When you said about the Buddhists and acceptance, I think that's the bit I've that's one of my gateways. That's the bit I haven't. In the moments I get that, I go, that's the bit that makes sense that I'm not embracing.
Yeah. It's almost as if you're scared that if you do that, something really awful will happen. If you accept things as it is, the suffering as it is, if you accept the suicides, if you accept the bereavement, if you accept your limited control over what happens in the world or with other people, that, yeah, just what is it that you fear will happen?
I think, I mean, as you're talking, it reminded me of extreme poverty. So having travelled in Asia and a bit of South America, and particularly around Ethiopia, and my heart opening, and it's almost that engulfing of, and I think I've somehow, so the okay, when I feel the okayness, it feels as though I could, which obviously isn't the okayness, but I could then go into an almost zoning out. Not
Yeah,
as long as
gotcha.
that. And that's, so there's, I think part of the struggle is me be going, but you've been running away from all this suffering, but ultimately, you know, there's depth and realness, and that's what's here. And I can hold the space for others very well at that depth level. But I haven't done a lot of that recently, I think, when I've been on this personal journey. I think, yeah, the suffering is just too much. It doesn't make any sense. Then I go into the logical, it doesn't make any sense. It can't be a beneficial divine presence that's creating this.
I think
and the pain.
one of the things you'll never have to worry about is zoning out. I think you can probably cross that off the list, knowing the little bit about you that I do.
I zone out most of the time. That's what I've been doing for 20 years. I barely, during the day, I barely, you know, took me to 11 o'clock to be able to sort of wake up and sit down, and then another day goes.
More of a zoning out from, like, okay, so I just don't care about what's happening. I meant it in that sense.
Right. Yeah, but I kind of go into my head, so I don't feel it. I don't care the day to day. And it's like with the, if I was able to accept and embrace it more, I'd be able to have had better relationships with my family, for instance.
I'm just Googling you something that I don't, if you come across Meg Wheatley, she runs a thing called Warriors for the Human Spirit.
No.
And I love her. I mean, I've loved her ever since the 70s or something, because
Right.
I used to teach leadership a lot, and she wrote some really good books on leadership. But I've just come across her again recently, and she's gone all spiritual, and she's basically works with people, and she even runs a school for warriors for the human spirit, which is about, so her belief, she's not 3P at all, but her, I think she's Buddhist, not sure. Anyway, she believes that we have to, you know, if we want to be like bodhisattva, if we want to be the people that make a difference in the suffering of the world, that we actually have to like go through some training for that, because of all the issues about ego and control, and like, so she puts people through quite a rigorous, so it's that skill of being able to hold the suffering of the world, and in fact Charles Eisenstein writes a lot about this. Don't know if you're familiar with him.
He writes about death a lot, doesn't he? I've got a friend who really likes. No.
He writes about interbeing, really. So you know, oneness, really, but especially to do with the planet and the environment and that kind of stuff. But it's one of the quotes, I think this was from Chogyam Trungpa, sorry, I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Yeah, I don't know how to do.
When you can hold the pain of the world in your heart without losing sight of the vastness of the great eastern sun, then you will be able to make a proper cup of tea.
That sums up everything I've been talking about.
That's right.
That's lovely. Can you send me that quote, please?
Yeah. So it's and in fact that's, you know, a lot of the work that I'm doing with climate activists, and it's about being able to stand tall, look at it as it is, not kind of live in some false hope that we're all going to turn it around, you know, with various techno fixes, but to still, you know, look it in the face. Comes back to courage again, and resilience and clarity, and again, act, that place of kind of love in action, in whatever way we're called to do. And I think that's an individual thing. But if you kind of, yeah, I mean, it's obvious really, but if you're constantly sitting at home, you know, weeping because of all the suffering of the world, then Meg Wheatley would say you're no good to bloody anybody, you know, from that space. Or you just go into denial, or you just go into paralysis, or whatever.
Which is where I've been,
yeah. So, well, let me send you some of her stuff and see what you think.
Thank you. Just one thing that came out as you were talking, and that I think is where I get quite scattered, is that there are all these great things and people out there, and that's when I get somehow divided, because it's like, well, if there's one truth, why are we not all kind of completely embracing this one? And I get, because I'm easily actually energetically with someone else, I'm kind of over there with that bit, and then it's like, oh no, this bit's great. And I think that's what's so scattering and exhausting, and why I don't kind of ground, is because I'm like, so it's this, and then how do I embrace that? I'm not always conscious of doing that, but I see that's what I'm doing, and it doesn't make sense to me, you know, as in uniting for a sort of better planet. It always feels so small and individual and tribal.
I know. Yeah. Maybe we're just not mature enough yet, not enlightened enough. Maybe we, you know, I mean, Meg Wheatley talks beautifully, and I'll send you the video where she talks about this. She's, you know, she says so many people, she's asked a question about, especially the pandemic, and how many, you know, and somebody asks her, isn't it wonderful, you know, the tipping point that's happening with consciousness and spirituality, and people are waking up, and she goes, oh, fuck off. No, they're not. Like, and then she says, you know, just look at the just look at the numbers. If you added up all the people that, you know, you and I would consider to be aware, and, you know, it's tiny, 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 tiny. Most people are still, you know, I remember the day McDonald's reopened around here, and, you know, there was this 10-mile traffic.
Really?
And people were getting out of their cars and punching each other. Like, that's where, you know, I know that sounds judgy, but I mean, that's where the level of consciousness mostly is. And, you know, and I'm not blaming them, like, especially in poverty. Like, if you don't know where your next meal's coming from, you know. And the other thing she says, which I think is really interesting, because she's a big student of the rise and fall of civilizations, she says, if that miraculous spiritual transcendent thing was going to happen, it would have happened 5,000 years ago in India. You look at the number of, you know, mystics, and like, that was far more, and she mentions other places and other times in history.
Good point.
We're much less, actually. Like, so I'm not a, an advocate of this idea that, you know, all we have to do is, like, we can only take that action which we are personally nudged to take, and that's pretty much it. And if it's visiting an old woman who's lonely across the road, or it's super gluing yourself to the Exxon building, or it's, you know, working on poverty, or if it's, I was speaking with Mara Gleason this morning, you know, with her work in Chicago with the gangs and stuff. Like, it's, if it's true what Charles Eisenstein talks about with this interbeing and this connection, and even things like morphic resonance, like all of that is having an impact. Like we just don't know. We don't know what kind of ripple effects are happening. But we can spend our whole lives saying, you know, my God, what an awful fucking mess we got ourselves in. And so for me, a big part of it is, it doesn't, I've found anyway, it doesn't reduce my caring for the world, my compassion for the world, one iota, if I'm joyful and peaceful. You know, there's that old saying about the best thing you can do for world peace is to be peaceful. And then act in whatever way you're called to act. But there is a certain, I don't know, yeah, resilience and acceptance and courage, and like not sticking your fingers in your ears and singing a happy tune, but just being joyful and peaceful, because that's what you are when all the thinking falls away. Well, this has been a very fascinating conversation. It sounds like you're in an aquarium or something there. Can you hear that?
Oh, sorry. I meant to ask you whether it's a fan, because my computer's overheating. Is that it? What you're picking up? Are you picking up like a whirring?
Yeah.
I meant to ask you at the beginning whether you can hear it.
I mean, I can still hear you, but this is quite nice. It's a sort of a.
Oh, okay. I'm not getting it. It's just it's a little mini, you know, one of those mini fans, trying to cool this computer down because it's happy.
Need them in this
right.
way. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So just quickly tell me. I'll send you some of those links.
Thank you.
What's been helpful? What's
it's all helpful to explore. I think it helps me to feel less alone in my madness, even though I'm talking to lots of people. But you have that ability, and you get that sort of big and small. Yeah. So that's really helpful. I think something about the acceptance. I can still feel very much that split for me between I'm either very compassionate or I'm okay. Right. And okay, you know, so I need to take a bit more of that on board and see that that's one of the places I'm splitting myself.
Yeah. And the other one, which is overlapping, it's kind of, I'm either zoned out or I'm responsible for everything and everybody.
Yeah, exactly. That's my,
yeah. Well, it's a bit of a lose-lose, isn't it, that one? Just, you know, I'm prompted to ask you, the Byron Katie, one of the Byron, who would you be without that thought, without that split? Who could you be without that?
If I'm not responsible and if I don't zone it out, who could I be? Or not over responsible.
if you just didn't have that dichotomy in your head.
Can't quite get it, but I mean, I want to say I would be peaceful. Who I would be, I guess I'd be Caroline rather than a zombie. Yeah, I have no sense most of the time of being here. Like the day passes, or I get from A to B, and yeah.
Play with that one a bit more. So, would you like another couple of weeks, another session?
Amazing, thank you.
So what about Tuesday the 25th?
That's good.
God, it was the end of August.
Oh.
Jeez.
Same time, 11 o'clock?
11, yeah, that's in. And I'll send you an email. Yeah.
Thank you, Kim. Amazing.
You're welcome.
Very grateful. Enjoy the sunshine.
And you. Take care.
Bye.